Now, we bring you the details of the news. The company at the heart of a storm involving the takeover of Merchant Bank Ghana Limited, Forties, has maintained it satisfied all necessary stipulated conditions required in the transaction. The directors issued the statement some hours ago saying Forties, as a private equity fund limited, wished to assure all Ghanaians and the international community that its bid to acquire shares in Merchant Bank Ghana Limited was above board and that management satisfied all necessary stipulated conditions required in such transactions. All the negative spin, according to Forties and sections of the media, was entirely misplaced and was full of misrepresentations as well as misconceptions. Forties was established this year and is owned by Ghanaians of excellent repute. Forties was set up to mobilize resources with the objective of turning around businesses in distress. Forties put in a bid to acquire and turn around Merchant Bank, according to the statement, following a breakdown of earlier negotiations with other parties who had expressed interest in acquiring shares in Merchant Bank Ghana Limited. This, according to the management of Forties, was a transparent bid, and the process undertaken was done without flouting any professional or legal standard. It is a fact that Forties is not a bank and that it was established this year. Neither of these two facts was documented as disqualification criteria for bidding for Merchant Bank, and neither of these points can be linked globally to the future success of startups and or acquisition of business concerns. The success or failure of a business is correlated to the availability of a vision, the resources to drive objectives to achieve the vision, and proper as well as professional discipline and business ethics to manage and also contain potential risks. Forties can confirm that they have and will put to use for the successful turnaround of one of its own premier banks the financial, intellectual, human and capital resources required to achieve this objective.
A senior communications lecturer has described as a weak Ghanaian understanding of democracy, its institution and the personalities that support it. Professor Audrey Berto of the School of Communications Studies of the University of Ghana says the population have a result of misconception, lost confidence in democratic governance, even though the Fourth Republic is more than 20 years old.
Professor Audrey Gajepo blames parliamentarians in particular for the erosion of the people's confidence, attributing it to the vague promises they make during election campaigns to change their lives for the better through infrastructural development, among others. This, she says, is despite the fact that it is not within their remit to decide which community gets the roads, school blocks and markets they use to lure voters.
This is our 20th year of the Fourth Republic having started, and yet it's striking that our understanding of democracy, our understanding of the institutions and even the personalities that support democracy is so weak. And I ask myself, why is that? I'm particularly happy about the issue about clarifying the role of the MP.
Professor Gajepo said the system of representative democracy is not working as it should and called on the media to give voice to the people and hold government accountable. The observation by the communications lecturer sharply contrasts what members of the international community, such as the visiting South African President Jacob Zuma, who believes Ghana is an excellent institution of democracy in Africa. Professor Gajepo was speaking at the launch of a project dubbed Central Agenda Project under the auspices of Coastal Television, a Joy News affiliate in Cape Coast. CAP is expected to improve and enhance accountability and responsiveness of constituents and their respective parliamentarians in 10 constituencies in the central region. The project report indicates MPs actively interact with constituents only during the electoral season, while the few who make the effort end up engaging only their party faithfuls. CAP is therefore hoping to improve citizens' understanding of the work of parliamentarians.
It also tells you what the media's responsibilities are to the people, including the fact that the media has the responsibility to hold government officials accountable. And again, last week, I reminded the EC of that you may find the media annoying. You are very happy when the media passes information to the electorate. But you have to remember that part of the media's role in the Constitution is to hold you accountable. So they don't have to agree with the way you do stuff. They have to ask you questions, and they have to embarrass you if they think that you're not doing your job properly. It's non-negotiable. You're not there to be friends with the politicians, even if you give them voice. You're there to hold them accountable, although that is only one rule.
For her part, the project coordinator, Gifty Nyomi, called for adequate education on governance to enable the electorate have basic understanding as to the people they vote for.
They feel that the primary thing is for the MP to come up with projects to construct roads and all the other things. They don't understand that their very primary objective for being in Parliament is to help in making laws.
Well, let's turn our attention to some sub-regional news. And the president of the ECOWAS Commission, Kadir Desiree Odrago, has conferred with President John Dramani Mahama and conveyed a document relating to monetary integration in West Africa in accordance with the decisions of the extraordinary session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government held in Dakar last month.
The target is that ECOWAS should have a single monetary zone by 2020. And in the strategy adopted, we should have a convergence to create the second monetary zone by 2015. That is, among the 7 countries of ECOWAS not member of the UEMOA community. So we have followed closely the implementation of the creation of this second monetary zone. And of course, we have noticed that we have noticed some delays in the implementation. This is the reason why we presented a report during the last meeting of the authority. The authority reviewed the situation and reaffirmed its commitment to the achievement of this objective of creating a single monetary zone in the ECOWAS region. But they believe that it is time that the authority get involved.
Has been said, coordination is important because at every one time or the other, one country or the other has achieved 2 or 3 and slipped back, and so it's been like a forward and backwards movement. A few years ago, I think in 2011, Ghana had achieved virtually all the 4 criteria, but again we slipped and have fallen back. We are undertaking reforms that would help us meet the targets of achieving the 4 criteria, hopefully by the target date of 2015. And so we're doing fundamental public finance management reforms. And I think that those reforms would help us speed up the process of achieving the remaining 3 convergence criteria.
The debate on the 2014 budget continued, with the majority blaming the country's challenges with attracting investment in 2013 on the election petition, which lasted for 8 months. The majority also called on the minority to support the infrastructure fund embarked in the budget.
At the end of 2012, foreign direct investment was in the region of $4.3 billion. Today it's around $3.2 billion. That means that investors naturally hesitated because of the uncertainty of the political system and the uncertainty. And Mr. Speaker, I dare ask them, how many of you didn't tell your constituents to wait for the outcome of the Supreme Court? So was the case of many investors into our economy who needed to be assured of the certainty of his political leadership.
The Trade and Industry Minister also charged the minority to be objective in his criticisms of the infrastructure fund to be resourced from the increase in VAT.
I urge our colleagues to abandon partisan rebellion of this initiative of wanting to adjust VAT upwards and support the minister. I know in the unforeseen future that they may lead and govern this country, they will not do away with the tax regime. So please, for the first time in many years, there are some incentives given to raw materials which will support the productive sectors of our economy, particularly those into printing, that if they brought raw materials in, they will get some incentives from him.
Government has recognized a special role for the private sector by providing this facility. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the same government has provided facilities for RLG.
Honourable member, please, you are...
He's misleading the House.
Honourable member,
so it cannot be the first time. It cannot be the first time.
Honourable member,
so
please.
I just want to remind him that he shouldn't say it's the first time.
Please.
And that loan was significantly more than 50 million. So he should withdraw that part.
The MP for Menchia, Dr. Matthew Puku Prempe, challenged the constitutionality of the infrastructure fund.
Mr. Speaker, under the able leadership of His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, government proposes, Mr. Speaker, in the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, we only recognize consolidated fund, contingency fund, and other statutory funds. Where is the law backing this infrastructure fund?
The MP for Takwan Swaim, Gifty Eugenia Kusi, also argued the budget was silent on the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection and urged the Finance Minister to reconsider.
This budget is silent on it. Please, I'm not talking about education. I'm talking about the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection. What they proposed to do in 2012, what they promised to do in this March budget, and what they promised to do here. Mr. Speaker, if Ministry of Education is training girls in junior secondary school, that is not what I'm saying.
No mention of training of girls in the budget. She made a categorical statement, and I wanted to place on record that there are all kinds of girl training programs in the budget.
The debate continues tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Export Trade, Agricultural and Industrial Development Fund Bill has been read a second time as the report of the Trade, Industry and Tourism Committee was laid before the House.
Well, let's look at how some banks are performing on the bourse. And Standard Chartered Bank Ghana recorded a profit before tax of 193 million Ghana cedis in the first 9 months of this year, 2013. And this is up from 80% from the period of the last fiscal period. And the double-digit growth, according to the chief executive of the bank, demonstrates the institution's resilience despite tighter regulations and controls. Kweku Beduado, who was speaking at the bank session at the Ghana Stock Exchange in Accra, credited wholesale and consumer banking for the impressive performance.
Chief Executive Kweku Beduado said the consumer banking business, along with other aspects of the business, showed strong growth.
Our balance sheet has grown to 3.5 billion cedis. We have improved shareholder value through increased earnings per share of 1.25 pesos compared to 69 pesos last year. Our return on equity is an impressive 48% compared to 40% a year ago. We continue to manage our costs within the context of the challenges that we face in the country. And our cost-income ratio is down to 30% from 44%. The balance sheet is in excellent shape. It is liquid. We are well capitalized and we are strongly funded.
Chief Financial Officer Dayo Omolokun said the bank also complied with the law, paying 4.3 million Ghana cedis by way of National Fiscal Stabilization Levy.
But it's important to also note that the rate of growth of revenue is outpacing the rate of growth of our operating costs. Shareholder value also improved. The basic earnings per share stood at 1.26 Ghana cedis compared to 69 pesos last year. The return on equity was 48% compared to 40% of last year. Return on assets, 6% against 5% in the corresponding period of last year. The bank continues to be very measured in pursuit of its growth strategy. We want to grow, but we just don't want to grow anyhow.
The bank says its impressive performance in recent years is the result of enhanced systems, good infrastructure, risk management and new solutions to cater for a rapidly expanding market.
Ghana has been taken off the blacklist of countries whose system aid money laundering activities and terrorist financial across the globe. The Financial Action Task Force in a report said the delisting follows high-level political comments by the country to the campaign against money laundering. Some of the key investors' interventions undertaken by government include the establishment of a financial intelligence center and the appointment of anti-money laundering officers by the various financial institutions.
The blacklisting meant that most online transactions, such as online purchases and payments from Ghana, with credit cards and other forms of payments, were rejected by several online merchants, with serious implications for international trade. Though the situation has improved over time and should even get better with the latest development, a representative of the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering, Olayinka Akinyede, called on African countries to step up the fight against money laundering to safeguard the ease of doing business on the continent.
Studies have shown that collaboration among AML-CFT stakeholders is often fraught with difficulties. Nonetheless, it is important to note that assessment of countries during the second round of mutual evaluations will focus on effectiveness, and the country's level of effectiveness will, to a large extent, depend on how key actors are collaborating and cooperating domestically. It is therefore important for AML-CFT policy makers in Ghana, primarily the Interministerial Committee, to take concrete steps to ensure that stakeholders are actually working together at the operational level.
The Chief Justice, in a speech read on her behalf, challenged financial institutions to immediately report any suspicious financial transactions to the Financial Intelligence Center for redress.
The government of Ghana has recognized the existence of money laundering and financing of terrorism as a threat to the peaceful existence and development of nations. It therefore took the decisive step to enact relevant laws to address the scourge. These laws include, but are not limited to, the Anti-Money Laundering Act 2008, Act 749, and the Anti-Terrorism Act 2008, Act 762, which has been amended by the Anti-Terrorism Amendment Act 2012, Act 842. The above-mentioned laws require financial institutions to identify and report to the Bank of Ghana and to the Financial Intelligence Center proceeds of crime that are derived from unlawful and illegal activities, to enable these institutions monitor and establish surveillance mechanisms on the activities of the perpetrators of the criminal offenses.
The Judicial Service, the CJ, noted, will not relent in its efforts to prosecute persons found engaged in money laundering and appeal to all financial institutions to collaborate effectively by establishing focal points in their respective offices, which will constitute a forum for future discussions and strategies. Meanwhile, Wisconsin University from next year will begin professional courses to train persons to be certified anti-money laundering specialists. Certification for the courses will be awarded by the Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists in the United States of America. The initiative is part of efforts to increase the number of anti-money laundering experts in the country in order to help curb the trend and sanitize the level of financial transactions in the various financial institutions.
So those are the stories we have this morning, and please get interactive. We have the social network pages as well.
Okay, so look again at the headlines. Forties, meanwhile, maintains it satisfied all necessary stipulated conditions required in such transactions.
Residents of Latania and Sawam vow to resist attempts to eject them for a stone quarry to start operations in their community.
So bringing you sporting is up next. Stay on.